Whether it is society's stigmas, familiar pressure, or self-imposed dread, the fear of being alone is a very real thing that many people deal with. And the truth is, women suffer from it more than men, or at least they start suffering from it much earlier than men, because there is a much greater pressure on women to find a partner or start a family, in part due to the biological clock that nature has imposed on them. The current dating scene does not help either, with women encountering so many low-value men and cumulating bad dating experiences that make the prospect of finding a decent man slimmer and slimmer. It is sad to note that more than 42% of millennial women are more afraid of loneliness than a cancer diagnosis, according to a recent survey. I was no exception to these women going into my 20s and my early 30s. I was so afraid of still being single by the age of 30 that it made me lead a very anxious and miserable life for the best part of my 20s. And the reason I'm making this video is to share with you guys my experience of how I overcame my fear of being alone after a major crisis in my life forced me to do so. So if this is something you're suffering from, make sure to stick around till the end of this video because today you will learn a lot. What I experienced is something called post-traumatic growth, a positive transformation that only occurs when you go through hardship, trauma or crisis that forces you to wake up from the denial or avoidance state that you have put yourself into for so many years. This experience has enabled me to view hardship rather as a positive experience, but that's for another video. So the very first thing you want to do if you want to overcome your fear of being alone is to find out where the fear comes from. And I'm going to use my own story to explain this point. So back in my 20s, being alone was literally my worst nightmare. My fear of loneliness and singlehood consumed me so much that I relentlessly jumped from one relationship to another. Being single really felt like a death sentence to me. This also caused me to pick relationships not really based on compatibility and affinity, but more so based on who was available and wanted to be with me. I never really took the time to neither acknowledge my fear nor to understand what it was all about. I never had to face my fear so long as I could manage to find someone new and get into a new relationship again until I married the wrong person and I got into a very nasty divorce 2 years into the marriage. I could no longer run from my fear because, as you could imagine, it was not so easy to find a new relationship in the middle of a divorce and bury my unresolved issues and feelings. And that's when I decided to do therapy, where I discovered that I indeed suffered from a severe fear of abandonment that originated from childhood trauma. I was also introduced to the attachment style theory, which explained and helped me make sense of many past relationship experiences that I had and how I came to relate to people the way I do. I do have an anxious attachment style for my part. If you are wondering why you get so anxious when thinking about being alone, maybe you can ask yourself what kind of attachment style you have. You can ask other questions such as, did you grow up in an emotionally healthy family, or did you experience some form of trauma or neglect? Was your dad or mom emotionally avoidant? Did you always feel this way, or did your fear of being alone start after a specific event in your life? These are just examples of many questions you can ask yourself, or you can do so with the help of a therapist to pinpoint where the fear of being alone comes from. Number 2, reconcile yourself with the prospect that you may be alone for the rest of your life. You see, I do believe that the cure to so many things in life is simply the poison itself. And to me, this applies to the fear of being alone. I think the more you expose yourself to your fear, the more you will get used to feeling it and the less effect it will have on you. And that's how you start the process of conquering your fear of being alone. The key point here is to incrementally accept the idea that you may be alone for the rest of your life, even if you still hold dear to your heart your desire to be in a relationship. And when the actual feeling of fear kicks in, you let it be and you feel it and you do not resist it and you allow yourself to feel the sadness that comes with it. If you repeat this process enough times, you will come to terms with the prospect that you may be alone for the rest of your life, and the acceptance of that will have the effect of diminishing the fear of being alone. The clinical term of what I just described is exposure therapy. I was not aware that this is what I was doing when I was going through that process, but the process came to me unconsciously as a survival strategy that allowed me to avoid losing my sanity as I was going through my crisis. The feeling that will result from all of this is neither happiness or sadness, but a sense of peace, because you will have diminished the power that the fear of being alone had over you and your mind. Number 3, get some perspective. You have to realize that most people who are in a relationship still feel very lonely, despite what they portray on social media or even how they appear to be living the perfect life, going on nice vacations as a couple or a family, and making nice meals for one another, etc. Reality is, I know more people who, out of fear of being alone, got in relationship not quite right for them, and they ended up paying a heavy price for it that far exceeded the temporary pain of being alone that they would have endured should they have waited a little longer to find a more suitable candidate. And I know happier people who consciously decided to wait a little longer to find a better match for themselves, and they ended up building much stronger and more resilient relationships. Number 4, see the time that you are alone as an opportunity. Those who had the resilience and determination to wait for a better candidate to show up in their life usually have a very positive mindset when it comes to their time alone. They don't think of all the things that they are missing out on that they could have been doing if only they were in a relationship. They do trust that their time will come someday. And in the meantime, they use this period of their life to entirely focus on themselves, bettering themselves, taking care of themselves, doing things that they enjoy doing without compromise, and trying on new hobbies, traveling the world, etc. There are certainly many benefits of being in a relationship, but there are so many other benefits of being alone and living your life on your own terms. And you do not have to choose between the two. You just have to do it at different periods of your life. Number 5, don't obsess over finding someone. If there is one thing you shouldn't do when you're experiencing the fear of being alone, is to let the fear drive you to finding the next relationship ASAP, because that's recipe for accumulating bad relationships and setting yourself up for more heartbreak, more misery, and wasted time. Each time you get yourself into the wrong relationship sets you further away from finding someone right for you.